Welcome to Bitcoin versus real estate, where I am going to compare Bitcoin versus real estate as an investment. And hopefully you'll get a greater understanding of the benefits of Bitcoin as a passive investment and also as a way to build generational wealth. So most of you know me already, but Miles haven't. I started my career as an advisor to a United States senator in tax and budgetary issues. I worked during the dot-com era as a project manager. I was a marketing director for a company called Wall Street Survivor, which was a stock market simulation company. And at that time, I co-wrote a book called Investing 101. And then in the decade after that, I actually worked in commercial real estate. My family, I come from a real estate family, commercial real estate family,
Cool.
and worked on that for a number of years. And then in 2019, I was trained by Andreas Antonopoulos, who's an early Bitcoin educator and developer. He trained me as a certified Bitcoin consultant. And of course, I am the co-host with Amy here at Bitcoin.
Yay.
Treasure Coast Bitcoiners.
Love Amy.
So this is the building that I helped to develop for a number of years.
Wow.
I come from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my grandfather bought this building back in the 1950s. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. Yeah. It's the original warehouse of Kaufman's Department Store, if you've ever heard of Kaufman's Department Store in Pittsburgh. Kaufman built Fallingwater, the very famous building by Frank Lloyd Wright, which is considered the greatest piece of American architecture to date. Anyway, this is the original warehouse built in 1901 in the Uptown district of Pittsburgh, and we did an adaptive reuse of it, traditional wood beams, brick walls, and we converted it into office space and lab space.
Current century.
We brought it into the current century, exactly.
Wow. That must have been so cool.
It was pretty cool, but old buildings are a trouble. They're trouble. I mean, the bones of this building is fantastic. They don't make them like this anymore.
Right.
And that's why it's still standing 120 years later.
Yeah.
But when you get a building designated as a historic landmark, you can't do things to the windows and and the facade and there's all these. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But anyway, it was fun, and I love the building. It was great. I sold my interest in February 2020, and I still have actually interest in commercial real estate in Pittsburgh. So it's not like I'm against real estate as an investment. My family's been in real estate for many years.
Right.
So, I understand real estate, and it's a great wealth builder. That's the next slide we get to. Because the world is your oyster with real estate, right? You go to any town, you go to any place, anywhere, and there's real estate. The ground you walk on is real estate. The buildings that you live in, the buildings that you work in, the buildings that you play and shop in, this is all real estate. And it's tremendously flexible, and you can get into any part of the market. And the various types of real estate that we're going to be looking at, of course, are residential, office, industrial, multifamily, manufactured housing, retail, and vacation rentals, which we call Airbnbs today. And real estate is great because you get a steady income. Right? That's why people generally buy real estate. They want an income. They want to get $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month, whatever it is. And it's pretty steady and predictable because people need buildings. We use buildings as human beings, thank goodness. The appreciation is much smaller. Generally, real estate appreciates around 2 to 8%, depending on the location and the type of asset that you get. The other great advantage of real estate is we get depreciation, which is a tax benefit. So there's a depreciation schedule for real estate. It's something like 38 years or something. You get to depreciate the entire value of a building. You deduct that from your profits. So really great tax benefits. You're protected from inflation. It's a tangible asset. People can actually touch it. You can see it. You can put your name on it, which my family has done for several buildings as well. So it kind of boosts some credibility in the community, and it really makes you a part of the place where you live. And then finally, it actually it's a tool for generational wealth. As I explained, my grandfather bought that building, and then I worked on it. My father, owned some of it. And so my son is here on the right. And this picture was taken about 10 years ago.
Cutie patootie.
Well, Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, he's a good kid. He's all grown up now, but this was a while ago, and in front of one of our industrial buildings, actually. And
the Berger Industrial Park.
Yes.
Now I see the sign. Okay, honey.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow tonight.
No problem. I'm explaining it here. So, and all of the men in my family are named M. Berger. Like I'm Mark Berger, and we have M's in the family. So the business is M. Berger, like real estate. And so it kind of is like this nice little generational thing,
Yeah.
Nice little family thing.
Right.
And real estate is generally a long-lasting asset. It generally will live through a person's life or even beyond a person's life. So you have to have a succession plan, and you can pass it down to your heirs over time. And also, if you've ever had a mortgage, you get to pay the mortgage down, and you build equity. So you don't have to put a tremendous amount of money compared to the value of the property. You can get a mortgage and you build equity over time, which is a great wealth building strategy. In Bitcoin, we call that dollar cost averaging, right? We buy Bitcoin every week, we buy it every day. In real estate, you're basically buying real estate every month when you pay your mortgage. It's the same idea. It's like a steady savings account. And then real estate, of course, has a great track record generally as well. People will always need a place to live. People generally need places to congregate, like we're congregated right now. People need places to eat. People need places to shop and to work out and whatever people are going to do in the future inside of buildings. People are going to need buildings. So, and as I said already, having a physical building with your name on it, it builds a sense of pride. And of course, my son is a big Pittsburgh Penguins fan. You can see by this shirt. They had just won the Stanley Cup a couple of months earlier. So he was very proud of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And so it kind of builds this tie to the place that you live. It actually gives you some roots. And then finally, when you're in the real estate business, you can pass on the knowledge from father to son, or from father to daughter, or from mother to son, or whatever it is. This knowledge passes on because it's not just knowledge of real estate, but it's knowledge of the neighborhood. It's knowledge of your neighbors. It's knowledge of the tax code. It's knowledge of the local politicians and how things work in this town, and on and on and on. There's all this local knowledge that you can actually pass down. So when you're a doctor, you can't really pass down that much to your children. Although if you're the exact same type of doctor, you might be able to pass on knowledge. Same thing as if you're a lawyer. You can't really pass on the practice, although a lot of children of lawyers go to the same practice, but it's not quite the same. Whereas this asset, you can pass it down from generation to generation. So real estate, it has some great qualities to it. However, there are a lot of problems with real estate, a lot of challenges in dealing with real estate. And on the right here, I have the latest quarterly expense sheet from one of the properties that I still have an interest in. And there are a lot of expenses that you got to stay on top of. And one of them is taxes. Another is maintenance. Maintenance is probably one of the largest expenses here in this expense report. You got legal issues, and you've got management. Who's going to manage this thing? Although real estate is generally a passive investment, you got to have someone to take care of your property. You have to deal with weather issues. You have to deal with the local laws and regulations and ordinances. You have to deal with contractors, because who's going to plow your snow? Who's going to paint your building? Who's going to keep it clean? Who's going to take out the trash? After a while, you don't want to do these things, obviously, as a landlord. You got to find people to do these things. And then finally, how are you going to get tenants? You generally have to rely on real estate brokers. And why are they called brokers? Because eventually,
They get paid.
You go broke eventually.
Oh.
That's why they're called brokers. They break you. Thanks, Kathy. Absolutely. And we're gonna get to residential real estate real soon here.
Okay, all right.
So, besides brokers, we also have insurance to deal with. And if anyone owns a house here in Florida, you'll know that insurance has kind of gone up a lot, the insurance costs. So we got insurance premiums. Then you have location risks. What if you get a bad neighbor? What if the road in front of your mall all of a sudden is being repaved? You don't get traffic anymore. You have all sorts of location risks that are totally out of your control. And then finally, when you want to move on from that investment, it takes years generally to sell real estate. It takes a long time. Okay, so it's an illiquid asset, as we say. Okay, so now we get into single family homes, probably the most popular form of real estate, because we all live somewhere, right? We all got to be somewhere. So houses, the long-term historical rate of return is very modest, 4 to 5% a year. Currently, we're sitting in a glut of single-family houses in the country, although maybe not in Florida. And also, I think it doesn't help that we have ICE rounding up a lot of people. A lot of people are being taken. Millions are being taken out of the country. So a lot of housing is opening up. And the current stats are that we have, almost an all-time high in supply of houses at the moment. So, if you're not deterred by the low return of single-family houses, the current environment should deter you. So we mentioned mortgages earlier. Who here actually knows what a mortgage, what's the etymology of it? Where does the word come from? Mortgage. Anybody? Real estate brokers can't answer the question. Sorry, Kathy. Anyway, mortgage comes from the French.
I say it sounds French.
French, mort, meaning
Die.
death, die. Gage is a pledge, a promise. It's a pledge to the death.
Yes.
And yet everyone wants a mortgage. Why would anyone want a mortgage?
Yes.
You can deduct your mortgage interest from your taxes. Yes, right. Mortgage. So, and fraudulent mortgages are what caused the 2008 financial crisis. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, and I wish I'd get in on it.
Yeah. So they were giving out mortgages to the Ninja loans.
Yes.
No income, no jobs.
Yeah, nope.
We give you a mortgage even though you have no income, no job.
That's right.
And so all these mortgages were written, and then the banks were sitting on these mortgages, and the mortgages were sold off to institutions as grade AAA, right? Caused the banks to fail in 2008. It was all due to fraudulent mortgages because the banks knew that if they just write mortgages, the government would cover their butt if something went wrong. Everyone knew the government would backstop them, which of course is what happened when everything went bust. And it was all fraudulent. And the government came in and bailed them out with the Targeted Asset Relief Program, TARP, $800 billion or whatever it is, that went right into the bank's balance sheets, okay? And we'll talk about more about the financial crash a little bit later. But 30-year mortgages are artificial. They are basically a function of the government backing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are government institutions designed to guarantee mortgages to the banks who underwrite them. Because otherwise, banks would not, in a free market, ever take the risk of 30 years of lending money against a depreciating asset, which is a house. Okay, so like in commercial real estate, in office buildings, you can't go to the bank and say, I want a 30-year mortgage. They look at you like you're a fool. We don't give 30-year mortgages, Mr. Berger. How about 20 years? Sorry, Mr. Berger. We only do 10 years at most. Why is that? Because the duration risk. The risk in a free market, all the bank is willing to risk is about a 10-year length. That's in a free market. There is no government backing for commercial real estate. Okay? All the banks are on the hook themselves. Residential real estate is propped up by the 30-year mortgage and has been basically since the Great Depression. And that is the reason why I think we have such expensive housing. If we simply got rid of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, housing prices would go down a lot because you couldn't get a 30-year mortgage anymore. You'd only be able to get a 10-year mortgage. And of course, the monthly payment on a 10-year mortgage is way higher than a 30-year mortgage. But we have, then this chart here is about housing affordability. There's a lot in the press about how Generation Z and millennials can't afford houses. And it's kind of true. I mean, the first time home buyer age right now is something like 50 years old, which is crazy in this country. Young people can't afford houses. And this chart, basically shows the history of housing prices in the last 50 years. The red line is the actual price of a house, average price of a house, which is easily an all-time high. You see the dip from around 2008, which was the great housing bust. We had a high there in housing prices, but we've gone straight up from there.
Market.
The green line is what they consider affordability. So you take the average income of somebody and then how much house can they afford? We're not quite at all-time peaks back from 1981, 82, but we're getting there. So Trump knows this is a politically hot button issue for all the young people who can't afford houses and are trying to build a career and they want to start a family. So what did Trump say? We're going to create a 50-year mortgage.
Oh my God.
Yeah, So instead of getting to the root of the problem, which is a 30-year mortgage, he's going to make the problem even worse, in my opinion, by creating a 50-year mortgage. Because a 50-year mortgage, the monthly payment would be less. But he's just inflating the housing bubble even more. He's pumping it. He's like pumping it up.
Right, see, $100,000 house costs $1 million.
Exactly. Because now people can afford even more expensive house prices. And why does he do this? Because if you own a house right now, you love that. Oh, 50-year mortgages are available? Well, now I could sell my house. If my house was $500,000, I could probably sell it for $600,000 because now people can afford it with a 50-year mortgage because their monthly payments are lower. So he's pumping up this housing bubble, and today he said he wants to put $200 billion into backing mortgage bonds. So I mean, this is what he's trying to do, and he's thinking, well, the next housing bust won't happen on his watch, but for the midterms and for the next election, he'll be okay. We'll see how this works out, but I think this is very dangerous. So the housing market to me is artificially inflated, and we all got to live somewhere, and if you got to buy a house, you got to buy a house, but I wouldn't consider your home an investment. Okay, homes are not investments. This is what you were saying, Kathy. A home is a place where you live, whether it's an apartment, a condo, a house. It's a place you live. It's not an investment, although the greatest wealth of Americans is stored in their homes. It's not an investment. It's a place that you live.
Because of the maintenance.
And this is what I say. It depreciates because of entropy.
Your roof's going to depreciate in 17 years.
Yeah, your roof goes bad, your electrical, your piping, your floors, your windows, your doors.
Everything, yes.
The fixtures in your bathroom.
It decays.
It's because we live in the physical world. We live in the physical world. Entropy is a part of life. We all age and die.
Entropy.
Entropy is from order to chaos, is the process of entropy.
Oh.
Order to chaos.
Okay.
We have entropy. We are going to live and we're going to die. Entropy is going to catch all of us. Okay, just like it's going to catch every building.
Yeah.
Every building, unless you put a tremendous amount of effort into maintaining it, will crumble to the ground if you don't do anything with it. Entropy will bring it down.
Right.
Okay. Right. Disintegration is the baseline of life and of physical things. Okay.
Right. Yeah, like I've got 1 foot in the grave.
We all do. We all have a foot in the grave.
Not much more of this depressing stuff until we get to the good news.
Talking about mortgages, right? Talking about death.
But that's okay. That's wild.
Well, we got to get through real estate first. We got to get through real estate. So you say, well,
okay.
So maybe not single family houses. Maybe I want to do apartment buildings, right? I don't have to worry about this. And I have one big building and I've got a lot of tenants and they're all paying me rent and I can do all this stuff, right? And it's true. It's traditionally been a better return on your investment as an investment itself. So you're right, around 10% a year for multifamily housing. The problem is right now is that we have a kind of have a glut in apartment buildings for the same reasons we talked about single family houses. Particularly here in Florida, we've got some areas that have experienced some of the largest drops in rental rates in the last few years. Fort Myers, Naples area, Northport, all down locally here.
Can you read those to me, honey?
Yeah, Austin is down 18% in 3 years. Fort Myers down 15%. Northport down 12%. Naples down 10.5%.
Wow.
Okay, those are the rents that are down on average.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. And Hope Sound has gone up 10, 20.
And inflation has gone up quite a bit in the last 3 years. Exactly.
But also home values.
Yeah, in home values, the buildings have gone down. And so this was a tweet just from the other day that I'll read it out here. This guy says, talking with top rental managers locally, and their rents are down 15 to 20% since 2022, and their vacancy is now 2 to 3 months. Site representatives are dancing on the street, flipping signs that say 3 months free rent. And then there's more and more multifamily and residential being built at the same time. It's so over.
Well, they don't live in South Florida.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not, and all real estate is local, granted. So if you're in Miami Beach, you don't have to worry about this. Everything is unique, but in general, you deal with all sorts of risks in multifamily. You deal with these macro issues. You deal here in Florida with hurricanes, and that's why I think we've got trouble on the West Coast as well. I mean, the one nice thing about real estate is you can raise rents to offset your rising costs of insurance, other things that are affected by inflation that are driving up your costs, you can raise rents relatively easily, unless you have a rent-controlled building in like New York City or Boulder, Colorado, or Berkeley, California. Then you're in real trouble, and that's why those buildings aren't maintained.
All right, let's get back on track.
Yes.
All right, and
sorry.
I wanted to point out too that there are a lot of real estate trusts out there. There are real estate funds. You hand your money to someone, and then they just mail you checks every month or every quarter. This was a shocking piece of news that just came across my attention last week. This Canadian real estate fund is not giving the money back to investors because things are performing so poorly in some parts of Canada. I don't know if you know about the big cities in Canada, the big 5 cities. They've had enormous run-ups in real estate over the last 15, 20 years, and now they're finally correcting. So tons of money went into building apartment buildings and houses in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and now they're in trouble. So just because you give your money to someone else doesn't necessarily shield you from these problems, and it might even make things worse because you're really out of control. You really have no control here. Now, office buildings. Office buildings traditionally have also been a very good investment. Average rates of return around 8 to 10% a year. However, COVID really screwed up the office market. Why is that? People stopped going to the office. Right. All of a sudden, companies discovered that they could have workers work remotely. Whole new culture. Huge change in working culture in America and Canada and probably Europe as well. So these huge office buildings, which used to be wonderful cash cows, are now selling at enormous discounts for the last 3 years. So this is an example of a building in Chicago, sold for $132 million or purchased for $360 million in 2017. It just sold for $132 million. So enormous loss. I mean, that's a $230 million loss in 8 years. Okay, that is crazy. That's great. And this isn't even the worst example. Here we go. A beautiful looking building in downtown St. Louis sold for less than 2% of its price in 2006. You know about that, Brian?
I was just at St. Louis earlier this year and just walking around downtown, the empty buildings were it was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I just had ideas of real estate just walking around. Same with Kansas City.
Yeah. I couldn't believe this. I mean, the owners of this property lost 98% of their investment. They lost 98%. They basically got wiped out. Basically because of the change of the culture and the pandemic, and whether you consider it, the pandemic was a natural occurrence, a freak of nature, or was it a planned thing, an act of war? In either case, totally out of the investors' control, could not have foreseen this, and they have no one to go to. They just have to suck it up and move on. Black swan event, whatever it is. And risks that you had never thought of. Like even in the residential housing market before 2008, people were saying houses have never gone down in the United States year over year or something like that. There's like real estate always goes up. It's a no-brainer. You can't lose buying houses in the United States. You can't lose. People found out the hard way, particularly in places like San Francisco. Oh my gosh, you can lose money in residential real estate. You certainly can. So here's other examples. A building in Portland sold for an 87% discount. Here's a building in Boston sold for a 75% discount. And this isn't just like 2 years ago or a year ago. This is recent stuff.
Which one's the monster one?
The monster one?
The Boston.
I don't know. 4 Farnsworth.
No, I mean, is it on the right or the left?
It's the one on the right. It says 4 Farnsworth Street.
I can't really see it. Okay.
Yeah, so...
That's where I'm from.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, this is happening everywhere. It's not just like in, flyover land in St. Louis and Kansas City. This is happening in New York. This is happening in Boston. It's happening everywhere. So here's a property in Washington, D.C., which you would think would be immune for these problems. This is a building that I know in the heart of Washington, D.C., near Union Station.
Cool.
They basically took a 50% haircut. They lost $272 million on this property. Isn't that crazy?
The one on the right.
The one on the left is Washington,
The one on
D.C.
the left, I
The one on the right is a Denver office building.
Okay.
It was once worth $200 million. Now it's worth 3.2. This is crazy. And real estate used to be thought of as the safe investment, right? Oh, I'm buying in something tangible. I can put my hands on it. Everyone can see it. I got the mayor on my side. You know, I've got these great tenants. I got these leases. I got my lawyer. Blah, blah.
Oh,
doesn't-
three white-haired men.
It doesn't mean anything today. It's what we thought was safe is no longer really safe. Okay, so what's been the hottest thing in real estate the last few years, right? Since we all work remotely now, we can go work in an Airbnb in somewhere, you know, and in a gorgeous place. We all are on our laptops, right? We don't have to have an office anymore. We're all in the gig economy and all that good stuff, right? So Airbnbs have been very popular, and some of them have done very well. But you got to have a good location. You got to have a top tier property. And then not only that, you're not in the real estate business anymore. All of a sudden, you're in the hospitality business. It's not just real estate you got to worry about. Yeah, you got to upkeep your property, and you got to keep it clean. You got to pay the bills, and you got insurance, and you got management, and now you got to deal with people who say, "Oh, I want to come in at 1 a.m. on a Monday. Can you be there to give me the key?" Or, you know what, this coffee isn't to my taste. Can you get something else? You didn't stock the kitchen very well.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things. You're no longer a real estate investor. Okay, you're now in the hospitality business. So I don't consider this real estate, although some people do. Okay, and even at that, you've got to have a top tier property to really make money, in my opinion. And I've done Airbnb myself in Pittsburgh and Montreal. And I had to find this out myself. I don't want to be in the hospitality business. But, you know, Airbnbs are now being legislated pretty strictly. Like, I know in Madrid, like they've almost outlawed Airbnbs now because the real estate prices were getting so high because people were buying properties just to rent them out to British tourists, right, coming down for the winter. And pricing out the locals. The locals couldn't afford to buy in Madrid anymore. It was either Madrid or Barcelona. Anyone remember? It's one of those two cities. So they outlawed Airbnbs. So what are you going to do if you bought an Airbnb property and all of a sudden the city council says, you're out of business, pal.
Well,
Shit out of luck. That's what it's called.
yeah,
right?
depending on what your zoning is.
Well, zoning can change. That's the thing.
Yeah,
You know, local zoning can change in a heartbeat.
That's true.
You know, if someone doesn't like what you're doing, if they don't like you doing what you want with your property, you can be put out of business.
Yeah.
Oh, one time I had to deal with a tenant that trashed my property. The cleaning lady came in and said they had never seen anything like it. There were beer cans all over the place. It was a total mess. It was like trash. Some young guys who said they were there for work.
Right.
You know, they trashed the place practically. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
well-
It was terrible. Yeah.
Oh, you don't have to talk to me. I just had to
Right.
throw somebody out.
Yeah, exactly. So tenants are a real headache in themselves.
Tenants are a headache.
Tenants are a headache. There's no doubt about it. They're costly to acquire because the brokers, you got to pay a broker generally, or you got to do it yourself. And tenants, good tenants are very valuable. Good tenants.
Yeah, good.
So,
yeah.
Good tenants. Good
Yeah.
tenants that pay their rent and they don't complain a lot and they keep good care of your property
Yeah.
because they really have to take care of it
Yes,
with you.
Always thinking better
Yeah.
care than property.
So the next type of real estate is manufactured housing, something that we might call trailer parks. Okay. And this is a very interesting kind of niche that's been exploited over the last 10 or 15 years as people are searching for returns. Because when you live in a manufactured housing development, you not only have to pay rent on the mobile home itself, you also have to pay lot rent. So there are a couple opportunities for investors. You can either purchase land or you can purchase the houses themselves and you rent both out, or you can do both. And the returns can be pretty darn good. The downside I see is sort of an ethical one. You're taking advantage of people with bad credit and can't really, afford to move into apartment buildings or just lower class people. And then you're also subject to local jurisdictions as well. A local jurisdiction could say, well, the people in this community, they don't want the manufactured housing anymore, and they can put you out of business. So it's kind of a turbulent market. The tenants can be very troublesome because they're generally of a lower income.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh, I know.
So retail real estate, also can have some good returns, but it also can have some bad returns. And so I put this -7% up here because why has some retail real estate done poorly? Anyone used Amazon? Anyone use that? Anyone here of Amazon?
What was the question?
Has anyone used Amazon here?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Amazon has destroyed a lot of retail real estate.
Amen.
Okay, it's just what's happened. Okay. But other properties have done very well. So if you have like an anchor tenant that's like a popular brand, like a Trader Joe's or a Trader 24-hour Fitness or something like that, that gets a lot of good foot traffic, upscale foot traffic, those have done very well. So it's really quite hit or miss. And in general, the retail real estate market is in a permanent decline, in my opinion, because more and more things are going online, but you still got to buy food, and people still generally like to go to the gym because it's really more of a social experience than it is actually working out, and yada, 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 yada. So, but also a lot of the malls actually, they have a good redevelopment opportunity. Like you were walking around downtown St. Louis, the office buildings, a lot of them are being converted into apartments. I know they're doing this in Pittsburgh, right? And a lot of these malls also, they're being converted to other things. They're being converted into mixed-use developments. So they'll have low-rise apartments with commercial built into them. So, a lot of retail is a good redevelopment opportunity. If you want to, plunge down, that rabbit hole in a way, and you're dealing with all sorts of political issues when you're doing redevelopment, talking to zoning boards, talking to community groups, talking to the local politicians, paying off the church, paying them up, blah, 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 because they want low-income housing, and, it goes on and on and on. It's a very, very time-intensive, it has to be a labor of love if you really want to do this. So a long-term investment, but you can do well with it, but it's not exactly liquid or fast flipping, And then the real estate, which I think is probably the best investment today, is the industrial sector, primarily warehouses, because again, of the whole move to e-commerce, right? Amazon is building huge warehouses all around the world, actually. And if you get in on one of these deals, you can make some really good money. And it's steady. And, as long as people are buying stuff, these stores are going to need to generally house it somewhere in a middle place somewhere. From the manufacturer to the retailer, it's got to generally go somewhere. So it goes into warehouses in between the manufacturer and the retailer.
So Amazon doesn't own their own warehouses?
It depends, but generally they get investors to do it, and they get contractors to do it. But they've generally said that they're not interested in getting in the real estate business because it's not part of their core business. Now they got into like the delivery truck business. Right. But they see the delivery truck business as a part of their core service.
Right.
They're a delivery company is basically what they are, right? So, but they decided generally not to get into real estate. So I can't say in all cases, but I know in Pittsburgh and in Canada, I know a couple projects there, and I know people who've invested in them, and they're very happy with their returns. So I can't say it happened, Amazon never buys their own warehouses, but generally they get an independent contractor, a developer who raises money and then goes out and builds a 400,000 square foot, a million square foot warehouse, something huge. And so if you can get a tenant like Amazon, FedEx, Walmart, and this picture was actually taken from one of the warehouses that I still have an interest in. And this is back in the day when we had DHL as a tenant. Very good tenant. They were with us for 15 years or something like that. A great tenant. Yeah, very good tenant. They do their business, they store things, they pick things up, they deliver them in and out. They're working 24 hours a day, long-term leases, and they pay well. They don't want to nickel and dime you. They want a good relationship with you. They beat up the property, but that's sort of the nature of industrial real estate. So with real estate, we've already talked about it's a physical asset, which has its benefits, but also has its disadvantages, primarily being entropy. And it's also a physical asset, so therefore politicians can tax the heck out of it, right? So we got all these taxes, we got all these risks, and I won't, go through all of these. We got location risk, we've got weather risk, we've got black swan events, we've got wars, we've got pandemics. Energy prices can spike, you can get sued, your tenants are a problem, technology can change on a dime. So really a lot of risk factors that are out of your control and you can't do much about. So really think about it hard. Okay, finally we get to the fun stuff, right?
Yeah, okay, go
Okay.
time, right, yeah. Amen to think about it twice.
Think about it twice.
2 or 3 or 4 times.
Think about it a lot
Yeah,
before you
think
get into
about
real
it a
estate
lot.
as an investment. Yeah. So most of you know what Bitcoin is because you've been here before. Miles kind of new here. So the Bitcoin white paper was published in October of 2008, which was the same year as the great financial crisis. So Bitcoin was created out of this cauldron of chaos created by fraudulent mortgages, by bad real estate, basically. And because the creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, in the first block of Bitcoin said, Chancellor in the UK on the brink of second bailout to the banks. And the banks needed bailing out because of the real estate problems, right? So Bitcoin was basically a response to bad real estate deals, tons of bad real estate deals. And it's basically money. It's a new form of money for a digital world without a central authority, without anyone controlling it, without anyone owning it at a high level to control it and to mess with it, basically, like our central banks mess with our money. They're always talking about what should interest rates be, how much money should we print, blah, 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 blah. No, this is all written into code what Bitcoin's going to be. And one of the most valuable assets or attributes of Bitcoin is that there's a hard cap on Bitcoin. There will never be more than how many Bitcoin? 21 million, Donna, A+.
21 million based on the white
21
paper.
million, exactly. So we have no manipulation of its issuance, which is an enormous benefit, something that the world has never seen, because right now, as we have precious metals skyrocketing, gold at 4,700, silver today at $95 an ounce, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to get all sorts of new miners out there looking for these rocks, because all of a sudden there's an incentive. When the price of Bitcoin goes up, you can't accelerate the issuance. It's mined every 10 minutes. You can't accelerate that. And we have a fixed schedule, and we know exactly how many Bitcoin there will be in 5 years, 50 years, and 100 years. The price doesn't affect the issuance whatsoever. Bitcoin is also censorship resistance. No one can tell Miles not to send Bitcoin to Donna or Donna to send Bitcoin to me. Anyone can send Bitcoin. It's an open protocol. And it's decentralized, like I mentioned earlier. There's no one controlling it. There's no boss. There's no company. There's no foundation controlling it. And Bitcoin is a bearer asset. It's like cash in this way. You can hold it, and you can give it to others. You don't need a custodian to hold your Bitcoin. You can hold it yourself, like gold or silver or the old bearer bonds. So how does Bitcoin work? Well, Bitcoin keeps track of all of our transactions. Miles to Donna, Donna to me. We keep track of all these transactions in the blockchain. And this blockchain is held on individual computers like mine and on Amy's and on Kathy's all around the world. We all keep track of the transactions between Bitcoin users. And that's how we know who has what Bitcoin, who has control of what Bitcoin. So we have this blockchain, and then the blockchain contains blocks. And blocks are created every 10 minutes. And every 10 minutes, we have transactions. Thousands of transactions between Bitcoiners around the world, and they're recorded on the blockchain forever. And this is an immutable record of who controls what Bitcoin on the blockchain. The whole thing is kept secret and secure by cryptography, a branch of mathematics that keeps information private and secure. We won't get into the details of this. But my point is that Bitcoin is anti-entropy. It is resistant to change. It is resistant to censorship. It is resistant to reversing transactions. It is anti-entropy, whereas real estate is high entropy. A lot of risks, a lot of physical moving parts, a lot of degradation, a lot of erosion. So I like to think of Bitcoin not so much as digital gold, but as digital real estate. Because one of the advantages of real estate, as the old adage goes, is, well, they're not making any more of it. They're not making any more land, right? The land on earth is pretty much fixed. So they're not making any more of it. It's a relatively scarce asset. And Bitcoin is the same way. It's a relatively scarce asset. And you can't just create Bitcoin out of thin air like you can the US dollar, where they just print it and press a button on a computer screen to create $1 trillion. You have to expend a lot of time and energy and investment to make Bitcoin. Like real estate, you have to invest energy and time to build a building. You have to invest energy and time to maintain a building. Okay, this is real world stuff. And so Bitcoin is real world stuff to me too. And I liken it to real estate. So long-term historical results. The worst year in Bitcoin, we saw 70% drawdown in 2018. And in 2017, we saw a 1,300% increase. Now that's quite a wide range. But when you look over the long term, it smooths out. So we have a 5-year compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin of 55%. Average annual growth rate of 55%. Okay, but this is October when we were at about $120,000 a coin, and today we're at 90. So it's down a little bit, but still, even at 40% a year, Bitcoin destroys the best that real estate can offer on an average annual. So digital real estate to me is better than real estate. We have no taxes, no traffic, no tenants, torts, no trouble, no mayor to worry about, no weather, no corrosion, no regulator. It's invisible, it's indestructible, it's immortal, it's teleportable, it's programmable, it's divisible. There are 100 million units in every Bitcoin. It can be volatile, but it's fungible. In other words, one Bitcoin is just the same as one other Bitcoin, whereas real estate, it's not fungible. One building is not alike another, even if it's built by the same developer. It's in a different location, it's been treated differently, it's not a fungible asset. And it's configurable to use as you wish and however much you wish. And Bitcoin is tremendously liquid too. So Bitcoin is greater than real estate. The current president and his family have made tremendous investments in real estate as well. So while the administration is in power, Bitcoin has strong supporters, and the Trump family has put a lot of its assets into Bitcoin. Whether you like the president or not, the family obviously has a lot of wealth, and they are a real estate family, right? Trump Towers. I mean, Trump has been in real estate his whole life. His father was in real estate. They are real estate people through and through, and they have made the transition from physical real estate to digital real estate. What the Trump brothers did was they started a company called American Bitcoin, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they're investing in Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining.
Okay.
Just Bitcoin.
So it's not their own version of Ethereum or XLR?
No, they're buying Bitcoin, they're mining Bitcoin, they're investing in Bitcoin. Trump himself has said, my family understands and loves Bitcoin. We're going into Bitcoin.
Right.
So, they're moving from physical real estate to digital real estate. They see the parallels, and I think that's one of the reasons why I could see Bitcoin as well early on, because I saw the parallels between physical real estate and digital real estate. Bitcoin is like digital real estate. It has a lot of the benefits, but so few of the downsides.
Right.
So, well, maybe, does anyone have any objections to Bitcoin at this point? Anyone? Objections? Okay, no objections. You can cut later. So maybe you say, well, Bitcoin's already gone to $100,000. The opportunity is gone. I missed the boat. I didn't buy in 2020 or I didn't buy in 2015. Okay, it's too late, right? I missed the boat. Well, here we are today. Bitcoin is only a $2 trillion asset, which is on the upper left of this chart. The small red square is Bitcoin. $2 trillion asset. And real estate is in the bottom left, in the beige box, a $370 trillion asset. And we have other assets here as well. Gold is, actually, this is a dated, this doesn't capture gold's gain from last year. Gold's now like a $40 trillion asset. Art, cars, and collectibles, 27 trillion. Equities, which are commonly known as stocks in the world, stocks of private companies, 135 trillion. Bonds, which are all sorts of bonds, which are sovereign bonds issued by governments, issued by corporations, 318 trillion. And then cash on hand is $129 trillion. So if Bitcoin just takes some of the value away from these assets that are traditionally seen as investments, if you took 1% of all of these other assets and moved it into Bitcoin, Bitcoin would double from here. Even say you took 5% of all the real estate holdings and you put it into Bitcoin, that's another like 5 trillion value. I mean, that would triple Bitcoin. Okay, if some of that value of real estate left real estate as investment and went into Bitcoin. You were about to say something, Brian, or you're just excited?
No, I'm very excited.
Okay. So Bitcoin, you're still not too late to Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin still has a lot of room to run once people realize how much of a better investment Bitcoin is compared to things like real estate, equities, gold, silver, bonds, and just cash sitting in the bank. There's tons of money out there looking for a better home, looking for a better place to invest in, and Bitcoin can still go up a lot. So anyway, here's a comparison between the digital real estate and the physical real estate. Average annual returns, obviously, even if Bitcoin doesn't continue at a 50% clip over the next 20 years, let's say 30%, and that's what Michael Saylor, the founder of Strategy, is projecting for the next 20 years. He's projecting a 29% compound average annual growth rate for Bitcoin, and he's a fiduciary. So he is staking, his company's reputation on that estimate of a 29%.
He owns most of the Bitcoin.
He now owns 700,000 Bitcoin, his company does, yeah. So even at 29% compound annual average growth rate, it destroys, in comparison, physical real estate. There's nothing, there's no investment that compares to Bitcoin. And the capital, when you buy a house, even just a house or even a manufactured house, you got to have, $50,000, $100,000 at least to start with, if not millions.
20%.
Right? And then if you want to get a mortgage, you still got to raise money. With Bitcoin, yeah, you can start with $50, $10. You can start with any amount of money. You can start with Bitcoin. And the scalability, that is also very flexible. As long as you have money, you can put it into Bitcoin. Real estate, very difficult to scale because you got to find another property. It's not the same property. It's not the same location. You can't scale your building. You can't scale it. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
It's very difficult to scale your real estate business.
No, you can't compare market value.
No. And liquidity, as we've already talked about, how long does it take to sell a house? At least 90 days. Commercial building, at least a year.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, 90 days, exactly. Commercial building, you're lucky if it's a year. Sell my interest, it took me 3 years at least to sell my interest in the commercial real estate. Volatility. Okay, Bitcoin is more volatile than real estate.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're one of those office buildings that lost 98% of its value. Okay, but in general, I would agree that Bitcoin is more volatile than real estate.
That is also, Saylor says that's like one of its greatest assets.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly. You can't, and there's something we're going to get to in a couple of slides here. If you want high returns, you got to take risks. One does not exist without the other.
Well, and it also gives you a chance if you're dollar cost averaging or,
Right.
To get it at a lower price.
Yeah.
When it does do those drawdowns.
And plus, too, you're not buying Bitcoin because you're going to cash it in next month for an electric bill. This is long term. I invest other places in order to make money to buy Bitcoin.
Right.
That's the
Right, and because Bitcoin is historically volatile, you have to have a 4-year time horizon at least, because you don't know if you're buying at the top. So, for instance, if you bought Bitcoin at $125,000 in October, Bitcoin could go down to $50,000 next year or in 2 years. We really don't know. But historically, it always goes back to new all-time highs within 4 years.
Right.
So you have to have a long-term, time horizon.
Yep, I bought it at 35 and I bought it at 65.
Yeah, good for you. Those are good prices. So cash flow, that's the other big reason people want real estate, right? I want my passive income. I want to be able to live. I want to be able to retire. I want to live. I want my real estate. I want my mailbox money. Where's my check, right? Give me my money. Well, Bitcoin doesn't have, monthly checks or quarterly checks or yearly checks. You actually have to take your dividend. You have to take your check out of your returns.
I see what
Okay, so if you've gained 100% in 1 year, like last year, if you're sitting on 100% gain, well, take 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 out of your Bitcoin gains. You just have to take it when you need it. That's all.
Take a seed first.
Get your money back. Take the casino's money first, and then you can
That's
play, right? Okay.
And
But you got to manage it yourself, and it's not going to be delivered to you in your mailbox. You got to manage your cash flow yourself.
Right.
The operating costs, obviously, Bitcoin is minimal. You have to set up maybe a hardware wallet, self-custody. It's a little bit of work, but nothing compared to the work that's required to manage your real estate. Nothing compared to it, right? That's easy to agree on that. All right. Now, this is the argument where people say Bitcoin is too volatile. Okay. So now Strategy has come out with a preferred stock called STRC. Okay. And STRC is giving you a return of 11% a year, paid monthly to you. But you don't get any of the upside of Bitcoin, but you get your 11% a month. So they're stripping out all the volatility for you. And this is the company that holds 700,000 Bitcoin. They're going to pay you 11% a month. You get no upside of Bitcoin, but you get your monthly check. You get zero volatility. Okay. So Brian was probably laughing from this tweet that was just done, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, from my man Adam Livingston, who I think is hilarious. He says real estate will continue to decrease in value as investors realize they can buy STRC and get 11% returns and sit and play World of Warcraft all day instead of unclogging toilets. He's a good writer. So if you can only get about 11% on your real estate on good years in a good investment, when everything is working, you've dealt with inflation, you've dealt with insurance, you've dealt with taxes, you've dealt with the local government, you've dealt with tenants, you're dealing with your contractors, you don't have a hurricane hit your property, you don't have a blizzard destroy your roof and the winds rip off your roof. All these things, real estate goes well, you make, 11%, 12%, 13% a year on average. Why deal with all of that when you can simply buy STRC, which is harnessing the power of Bitcoin, stripping out the volatility for you, and will pay you monthly 11% dividend. Low risk, relatively high return in this investing world. And you don't even have to know anything about Bitcoin. You don't have to self-custody Bitcoin. You just buy STRC at Robinhood or at Schwab or Fidelity or wherever you happen to have a brokerage account, if you have a brokerage account, or if you have a retirement account. Pretty interesting, huh? So we take a look at this chart again. Average annual returns, 11%. You don't need a lot of money to get started. Super easy to use. If you can use Robinhood, you can get in on it. Liquidity, basically 24/7. Volatility, very low. You get monthly cash flow, which is what real estate investors like. Operating costs, nothing. Zero. Nothing. You get 11% a month. And you can start with $100. Actually, you need $100 to buy one share of STRC.
Do you have a referral code?
For STRC?
Yes.
Don't need one.
You don't need one.
Don't need one. Just, do you have a brokerage account?
Yes, I do.
So type in STRC, and when you
See if it comes up.
it'll come up. It'll come up. Yeah.
$99 a share.
$100 a share. It's pegged at $100. It's designed to stay at $100. That's the intent. Okay. It was selling a couple months ago at less than 100, and if you're able to get in at that time, you got a nice little bonus. But it's supposed to stay at $100. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the annual return is 12 months.
Its annual return is 11%,
Right.
paid monthly.
Oh, okay.
It's 11% a year is the annual return.
No.
So
Every
these
year.
huge investors who are annuities, who are pension funds, who are endowments, who are family offices, they control billions of dollars. How much of money do you think they have in real estate? How much money do you think they have in bonds, which is most of the world's wealth, where most of the world's wealth is invested? And instead of taking the risks of sovereign bonds, which could go bust, or corporate bonds, which can go bust, instead of dealing with the hassles and the risks of real estate, don't you think they'll just put some of that money into STRC with virtually no risk, 11% paid monthly?
I do think so, yeah.
So last week, STRC took in $292 million worth of US dollars. $292 million they took in
As
in 1 week.
investment coming in, or?
$292 million were bought STRC. That money goes right to strategy. And strategy is what?
Buy more Bitcoin.
Very good, Kerr. Exactly.
That's right.
And so I'll also counter one of the arguments that hasn't been made yet. People say, well, where's strategy getting the dividend? Where's the money coming from? Well, Wall Street complained about Stretch because they say this is not a income producing company. They don't produce that much money in order to pay out the dividends.
Yeah, so it sounds a little bit like a Ponzi scheme.
A little bit like a Ponzi scheme. Exactly. So where's the money coming from? Is it going to come from new investors piling in? So what Michael Saylor, the founder of the company, did is he went out into the debt markets and he borrowed money to have 4 years worth of dividend payments for STRC and the other preferred stocks. So he's got a war chest that can pay out dividends for 4 years.
But how does he know how many dividends he's going to have to pay out? Because if a bunch more people invest.
He's projecting that this is,
Okay.
I mean, he says that Stretch is his iPhone moment.
Okay. But
He,
it's still, I mean, it's not it's a justified question, right?
it is a justified question. Where's the money coming from for the
Right.
dividends?
But where is the money coming from? Because he says he's not going to sell the Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin is going to grow in value. That's the only thing that's backing up the company as.
So if Bitcoin as an asset grows greater than 11%, this works. Because that's what's growing on his balance sheet is Bitcoin, 700,000 Bitcoin on his balance sheet. So if Bitcoin grows on average greater than 11%, this works.
But how can he get away with never selling it?
That's
He-
a great question.
He can borrow against it.
But at some point, is he going to have to sell some of it?
Not necessarily,
Okay, so let's say he's got, I don't know, $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin.
which some people are saying is going to happen this year.
Are we talking Michael Saylor?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So if he has $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin and he needs, I don't know, I guess theoretically he could need like $3 trillion to pay out all the dividends, right?
No, it never, the math doesn't work. That's not the,
Okay, so he's only going to sell as much of the Stretch as he's.
and he's not going to
Does
sell. He's going to finance it. He's going to finance the dividends if he ever has
she's
to.
saying the preferred stock.
He's
Even-
only going to sell as much of the preferred stock as he has money in his war chest to pay the dividends on.
Well, it's a constantly moving target. So as time moves on, his war chest is going to shrink because he's paying off the dividends. Because the company does have tangible value. Because Bitcoin is now considered tangible value by FASB fair accounting standards.
Right.
Because you can now account for Bitcoin in your balance sheet, which was a huge move, which allowed him to do these preferreds. Because before last year, you couldn't count Bitcoin on your balance sheet as an asset to borrow against.
Mm-hmm.
So huge. So I hope this has been interesting and enlightening, and you'll think about potentially selling some real estate and buying Bitcoin or STRC.
Hey,
It was very good.
very
Really.
good. Thank you
Kind
very,
of mind
very
blown
much.
right there.
Good, Kier. I like that.
Yes.
I like your mind's blown, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for Professor Mark. We appreciate it. You do such a great job.
Oh,
Thank you for doing it.
you're welcome.
Truly, thank you. I love it.
We couldn't tell.
You could